かった。J 防弾のベート。その装置を起動させるな。
存在固定。
The Case Study of Vanitas' second season was one of the few anime I had been anticipating for a while. Now, most of the reason for this is simply because I don't keep up with releases as they happen, but I think that speaks to the anime doing something right that I actually finished it the day Season 2's final episode aired. I was waiting, ready to take in more of this somewhat standard anime with an anything but standard look at love. What we got was something much different. There's a lot I could say about the Case Study of Vanitas' second season, but I hate to be so negative overall because it's still serviceable if not disappointing, and I just made an overall negative discussion like that for 91 days, so I'm not really in the mood to do so again. But I think we can look at something a little bit more specific and interesting that speaks to the flaws of the second season in a more valuable way. And that point is quite possibly one of the worst characters I've ever witnessed. Chloe Apshir. I don't know, they say it weird. French. But before we really get into things, let's address a point many will probably make. This is a vampire anime about beautiful people, you're just looking into it too much. And there is some validity to that, not everything is trying to be deep, and that's fine. But I think the Case Study of Vanitas broke that mold a bit in its first season. When I made a first impressions video for the anime, which got copyright claims, so sorry I can't give any evidence for this, I said that it was going to be basic but an enjoyable experience for an average fan, the kind of thing that wasn't for me. I was wrong, and in a follow-up video I explored how it turned fan service into something much more apt and enjoyable than it usually is. It looked at love from the point of lust, showing it as manipulation and experimentation rather than contrived scenarios to get a look at some panties. It asked characters who hated themselves what they thought love was, laying the groundwork for what could be some great ideas like how the unloved could begin to love. And those hints of greatness are why I won't yield to any comments that I'm looking too deeply into a simple vampire fan service anime. Maybe those hints of depth were all a mistake, and coincidence decreed that the sum become more than its parts. But either way, those elements were there and then were lost. So in love of the series and not in hate, let's look at Chloe and how she represents the worst the series could have offered. Chloe's introduction comes in the first episode of Season 2. Our odd couple dispatches to Galvadon in search of the town's fabled beast, which has been terrorizing the land for years upon years. Once there, they find themselves seemingly launched back in time with the appearance of soldiers from seemingly centuries prior. The beast wastes no time in launching an assault, leading to Noe being taken captive by Chloe and back to her castle. She is presumed to be the beast, and her aide Jean Jacques, while Vanitas and the others are left to recover and then search for Noe. When this started, I assumed it would be a few episodes like what we'd seen prior, but this introduction leads to half a season of Chloe and her relation to and supposed impact on the story. With 6 episodes, there was enough time to settle on a few traits, develop a motivation which our main characters reacted to, and wrap everything up in a nice neat package to move the story back to our main antagonists who are referenced throughout this arc. But that didn't really happen. Chloe's character is wildly inconsistent, swapping motivations and rationales left and right with every beat where the story wanted to force in some new detail. Let's go through her evolution as briefly as possible, but, well, you'll see why briefly is a very optimistic statement. We don't see much of her in the first episode, but what we do see is quite childlike. She says her legs hurt and she needs to be carried home by Jean Jacques. Now, this would contrast with her being the beast, which would fit in making her a somewhat interesting character. Not the most original, but little girl turning into a massive beast is something at least. Like, maybe she becomes overcome with her curse. So her character starts to take a direction which the next episode does follow up on. Noe wakes up to her sucking his blood in a very socially unaware way, again, pretty childish. But as Noe greets them downstairs, now she's surrounded by automatons, which is a new addition and introduces us to her being more of a scientist for the first time. This goes on to her, rather seriously, mentioning how she consciously gave up her true name to Nania to accomplish her wish. And this is where I started to feel some oddity to her development. This very much goes against her being childish. She's admitting to making a conscious decision to ruin her life in search of what she wants. That's fine on its own, but it doesn't match with the side of things they've already laid out. But this moves on to Jean Jacques explaining her backstory to Noe. As a child, she woke up one day to just mysteriously be a vampire, and her father swore he'd turn her back into a human and launch the family into research of the world formula, hoping to achieve this goal. Through generations, she stayed there and kept watch over them in this quest. Interspersed with this is her conversations with Nania, where she says, "I'm not mature, I'm actually very jealous." But we've already established that she is mature because she spent her entire life helping her family help her, and also admitted to having seemingly thorough and adult motivations. But then, sometime in the midst of this, she's visited by Auguste Ruthven, one of the baddies from Season 1, who, for some reason, leaves a young Jean in her care. They grow close before Jean has to leave, and Ruthven then returns to try and steal Chloe's family's research on the world formula. This then starts her motivation of being alone, but at the same time as she says she can't abandon the family and their research. Also with Jean, she finally gained a desire to see the outside world, which is what brings about this renewed family dedication. So, okay, at least there we go. She chose family, there's her motivation. Oh no, wait, they're all dead now. Off screen, we just hear how these nameless, faceless characters are dead, and that completely changes her character. Nania convinces her it's her fault, so she thinks that she is the beast and the one who killed them. But actually, she's not the beast. The beast was made up by the church as an excuse to kill some people they didn't like, I think. But everyone is now fully convinced it's real and has something to do with Chloe and her family. So Jean Jacques, who she found in the forest and took in, sees this and decides he will willingly become the beast, making it real and proving that she isn't it. Then Jean comes back on a mission to kill the beast, which leads to her meeting Chloe again, who decides that having met Jean again and seeing how she grew is okay with dying and jumps off a cliff. But then, while she's falling off the cliff, Nania convinces her to be angry and keep living, and she agrees, wanting revenge. So we have family, which is now their legacy through research, Jean, who included the outside world, so I guess that motivation is wrapped up. All the hints of her childish nature are gone, and now she has some motivations with Jean Jacques as well, and then also revenge. But then that turns out to be the center of her revenge because she wants to kill Nania for interfering with Jean Jacques. So she finishes the research, activates the alteration engine, and makes Nania take a physical form to kill her because she's that jealous. But actually, the automatons are named after her family, and she planned to have them kill her when it was all over because the revenge wasn't actually that, but was also for her family on her, even though she should now know that she didn't actually kill them because she's not the beast. But she still wants that to play out through these surrogate machines. Oh, and this was also so Jean Jacques could be free of her, even though the only thing he has or that makes him happy is being with her. Okay, so family motivation, secret revenge plot, Jean Jacques, secret suicide plot that's also the revenge, actual revenge, nothing, just a red herring. Well, at least it kind of ties her family motivation into everything else, but wait! Actually, in the 11th hour as she's being saved, it turns out she actually thinks her father was a liar and didn't want to save her. Despite the family doing generations of work on a supposed solution to the issue, she thinks he just wanted to turn her back because he couldn't accept a vampire and she just wants to be loved for who she was, despite also wanting to give that family, which now apparently she didn't like, a surrogate revenge after completing the research which defined them for generations, which she personally watched over.
おかわり待って
存在固定
This is absolutely bad in it. I never found myself interested in this arc, not because it relied so heavily on new side characters who somehow always had multiple connections to the main cast, although that is an issue, but because they didn't give me any reason to be interested in why these new side characters existed. They were either exceedingly basic, as Jean Jacques is, only wanting to love Chloe and literally nothing else, and then Chloe herself, who couldn't nail down a consistent motivation to define her character around. She was just whatever felt the most tragic or somehow related to other characters in a new backstory that was conveniently never mentioned before now. And you can't just say this is an issue with the type of anime it is, because there's other more basic or common anime which do short character arcs much better. I always come back to Rui from Demon Slayer for this one because he's engaging yet a very minimalistic character. At his core is one idea, not 7 million, and that is family. His backstory is that he never got to have the happy family he wanted, so he makes a false one focused on what he thinks family should be without knowing in a childish way. It's just physicality, the form of mother or brother or sister or father, but then he meets Tanjiro, our protagonist, who also has one idea at his core, family. Only he understands what it really means, and Nezuko, in showing this, becomes the target for Rui, because in his childlike grasping at family, he now feels what family should be, something he thinks he can just take like he's taken everything else. Then their conflict plays out against this backdrop, where Tanjiro's roots, the power of understanding his family, is what allows him to essentially win this battle. It's simple but provides insight and depth. Chloe, on the other hand, feels like they tried to relate her way too much to certain characters, and so failed to make her have any actual meaningful connections to those characters. Her physical backstory involves Jean, but gives her a desire that doesn't really match with her love for Jean Jacques, which is to see the world, which her love with him doesn't involve seeing the world at all, so those conflict. And then her family aspects really don't relate to anyone, although it does bring in research, which gives her a connection to Vanitas, but one which doesn't feel justified. And that justification brings us into her design. Now, Chloe's impact on the world is essentially nothing, but we'll get to that in a moment. But supposedly, it's that of a mad scientist. She binds a grand evil to a physical form and tries to kill it by using the research she conducted over literal centuries, and its failure leads to the near destruction of this part of the world in an ethereal rift. Okay, hell yes. But why don't these actions actually feel like they're tied to her at all? Part of this is the wishy-washy motivation. They don't feel fully coherent with why she's doing anything. It feels more like she's performing what the plot demands, not what she would reasonably want to. But part of this is also because her design just doesn't match anything they're doing with her character. To start with the elephant in the room, her body stopped aging at 11, although she's actually 289. That's literally the meme that makes fun of anime! Also, I don't know why this was necessary in a world with vampires who already age without showing it physically. Like, here's Ruthven in her backstory, and in the present day, why does Chloe have to be stuck specifically at 11? And don't say it's because she has that weird thing where she traps her space and time, because Jean Jacques is there in her space and time, and he still ages. Whatever your feelings on the perceived age dynamic, I just think this case is unnecessary. And the supremely youthful look doesn't give any weight to her being an insane scientist locked in this castle for hundreds of years. She just looks like an 11-year-old in a gothic dress. Does she work in the same outfit every day building machines? I mean, more power to her if she does, but why not work some utility into her outfit to make it more believable that she was building these automatons in this literal world-changing alteration engine? And the engine works on sound, just like the automatons are instrumental, so put some music to her design. Give her the Sayaka hair clip that pulls that aspect of her character into physicality. The sound side of things comes out of absolutely nowhere for her. And back to the science, where's the insanity? Why can't her outfit be a bit more disheveled or cobbled back together like she wore it once whole and proud, but lost the focus to do so as she lost herself over years of loneliness and research? Have her hair be less perfect, maybe slightly offset like she cuts it herself, but always misses a few strands here and there because she's so busy, unlocking the literal secrets of the universe. And again, we come back to the potential argument, but this isn't that type of anime. people want beautiful characters and beautiful romance from their vampire half-porting anime. But I have definitive evidence that you can have characters who visually represent dedication to the craft while still being beautiful and perfectly likable for a fanbase, and that's goddamn Maho Yasho from Steins Gate Zero, the greatest character in that goddamn anime. She obviously cares for herself, her hair is messy, but you still have to put a lot of time and effort into that kind of length. Her clothes fit, but some of her outfits are very utilitarian because she's just gonna throw a lab coat over them anyway, so why would it matter? Her stupid mismatched shoes because she's just been putting on whatever has been left by the door all this time, obviously. I believe that she's struggling with the loss of someone she loved and that she's dedicated to the craft they shared because of this design. She thinks herself overshadowed, and it isn't trying to impress anyone else, isn't trying to make a statement or anything like that. So this is reflected in how she looks. And I bring this up because Steins Gate is essentially a harem anime. Part of the appeal for many people is that it's one relatable man going on dates with a bunch of cute girls, so the designs are all meant to be pleasing while also distinguishing their characters from the rest. So it is possible to have both, an attractive design that also highlights a character's traits or flaws. Also, all of this isn't to say that beautiful women engaging in science need to be less visually appealing to be believed as genuine in it, or that they can't also be interested in fashion or beauty at the same time. If you show up every day looking how you want, whatever you do, you're a damn powerful queen. And I think that a well-written character could easily pull off both of these things at once. But a few episodes villain whose story is busy trying to connect 17 completely distant points doesn't have the luxury of their design being mismatched to their personality. Now let's get back to her impact on the world. There's a fundamental mismatch between what her character is supposed to be and how the anime wants people to feel from her character. It wants a new tragic villain, but also a happy romance ending all at once. So this leads to the stakes being both supposedly high, but actually utterly meaningless. Let's look at how it starts, where Chloe is supposedly the beast. I mean, damn, she's out of control and killed a bunch of people. That's an issue they really do need to solve. But it's solved for them because she's not actually the beast, it's Jean Jacques who is. So, okay, she isn't the beast, but aided the beast. I guess that's still, a little culpability there. Not great, but redeemable. But then her malnomen is actually the ability to place the surrounding area in stasis, so the people they've been killing haven't actually died because it's a time loop. So this takes the stakes of this from, oh god, this beast really needs to go, to, I guess the beast actually had zero impact on the world at all, which is mighty convenient for the happy romance that follows. But at least it makes it so they don't need to really be redeemed, and having them be happy with no consequences won't send a bad message about love. Oh wait, no, because there's also the alteration engine, which has a much greater impact on the world, but is less of a focus and only introduced after the beast. The alteration engine is actually too impactful for who she is, because it's literal world-ending power. It tears part of the world apart and binds the main villain to a worldly form where she can almost be killed. How are things supposed to feel important after this point? They just stuck the world back together, and now we're gonna go deal with some family drama with Vanitas? How is that anywhere near as high stakes as this? And then the woman who made this all possible is just gonna dip out of the story with her creation conveniently destroyed? It's already unclear if she deserves all the consequence or none of them, but none of them is what she gets, because her and Jean Jacques now get to be happy together forever, despite willingly almost destroying the world. And then this romance feels fully unnecessary because immediately afterwards, Jean admits her real feelings to Vanitas after having witnessed Chloe and Jean Jacques, so the romance quota was gonna be filled anyway. Why not have those two instead have a failed romance, or face some consequence where they can't be together, and then have Jean witnessing that make her realize how important Vanitas is to her? That would make their relationship much more impactful and feel less forced. Especially because we have a scene where Vanitas relates to Chloe, speaking to the look of finality in her eyes, that of a researcher who's decided to end it all with their work. That depression and lack of care for oneself is what Vanitas is all about. Chloe could feel more impactful if she served as a lesson of how tough love could be for people like Vanitas who struggled to balance their pursuits and their personal lives. Jean could see that and feel more devoted to him for still trying, or at least understand better why he acts as he does at times. And it would also prevent a major issue of messaging.
せっか奏でるもの タノーラスよ。
ひどいでしょ。ひどいでしょ。私。
Now, this is one I don't give any genre or medium a pass on. What we witness, real or fiction, influences our perception of how things are. If you only see unhealthy romance celebrated, you'll be much more accustomed to the patterns of unhealthy romance being normalized. Same if you see awful people who get to have a happy ending with someone else anyway. It lays down the idea that no matter how horrendous someone may be, they can find love without making themselves any less horrendous. That's what I like about Season 1's romance. It wasn't healthy, but it was showing itself as something negative. Domi basically takes advantage of Noe's urges to try and force them to have a deeper bond, but it doesn't lead to anything greater because he's simply following desire, not understanding her feelings. Vanitas straight up takes advantage of Jean, but although it is played for laughs a few moments later, she doesn't reciprocate his feelings and actively hated him for a while. And he wasn't doing it out of an actual love, but this weird experimentation. He found a new feeling in himself and selfishly explored it like the asshole researcher he is. That fits with his character, and when he says softly to Jean that he'll kill her if he ever has to, it obviously isn't healthy, even if it's a bit romanticized. There's also something almost disgustingly adult about witnessing such awful relationships, ones which are built on the pillar of pleasure over what's better for any of them. The conflation of sex and love is something that could be explored a bit more honestly in a lot of stories. Sadly, by making Jean and Vanitas a more proper love story, I don't think we'll be ever getting much more of that in the future of this series, though. But Chloe and Jean Jacques is a much more immediately worse message than theirs. Her plot comes down to, I took centuries of research and dedicated to killing one person who dared to let me make a stupid decision without my consent, running the risk of destabilizing the entire world simply because I was jealous. And then they get to be happy together with no consequence, and he's perfectly okay with this. He has no issue because he's just so in love with her that the destruction of the world doesn't matter as long as he can be with her. I'm dying from how awful this romance is. There's, I'm okay with your faults, and then there's minimizing horrendous shit by saying, I don't care if you're unfair. Love people for their faults, but oh my god, don't solve your loneliness by dedicating your entire being to someone who would end the world out of jealousy. Don't make that stuff look okay, because it's not. I've been through a long, unfair, jealousy-riddled relationship, both of my fault and theirs, and I'm still finding new consequences of it to who I am many years later. If I had some gauge for a healthy relationship before then, it wouldn't have messed me up so bad, but not much media makes an accurate portrayal of healthy commitment. Now, are a few series here and there reinforcing a bad message going to break the bank? Of course not, but it's something we need to be aware of. So when I see really, really irredeemable romances like this, I'm gonna call them out for being so awful. This video is already much longer than it should be, so I want to try and wrap things up now. But I want to stress again that, at least recently, I hate to make negative videos like this. I would rather find some positive message to talk about in every series and discuss that with you instead, but sometimes it just isn't possible. Now, if Vanitas was simply any other anime, I would just forget about it and move on. But it's something that showed a lot of promise, an anime that explored this lustful conflation of love, that showed a character who was testing his way through the experience and the feelings that make it up, not through understanding love, but wanting its benefits anyway, despite also not thinking himself worthy of anything positive, so maybe he's purposefully seeking out something so terrible for him, and as someone who's felt those terribly unhealthy feelings, I related to it. It was so close to making a platform to discuss those thoughts with the story so others could have some frame of reference. I'm only this critical of the anime because I really loved what it was doing and wanted to see it succeed. If you liked it, I'm not saying you're wrong. If you love Chloe, I'm not saying you're wrong, although I will judge a little bit. I'm just saying I think they missed the opportunity to do something truly grand with this series. But I'll finally take my own advice and wrap things up. So as always, I'll leave you with the important links in the pinned comment below. Twitter, Discord, Twitch, where we do Thursdays and Saturdays. I will be doing that again, I swear, after being sick and way too busy for too long. But most importantly, a link to my Patreon where you can get your name at the end of videos like these lovely people are on screen right now. And if we can get up to, I think, about 10 people, I'll start doing some additional benefits over there as well. But anyway, I'll just leave you by saying thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.